And we are live. Greetings, friends of the apocalypse. This is Jared the Apocalypse Nerd Wallace from Podcast at Ground Zero, your home of the apocalypse, for episode number 45, Mad Max Fury Road. Tonight is my co-host, Adam Baum Glancy, plus we have three special guests today. We have three audience members, people who have been following the show and express an interest when I put it out there. Would you like to join us for the conversation? So we have three folks with us today. We have, let's see here, we have Ford. Ford, can you say hi to the folks?
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
There's Ford. Okay, hi, Ford. And we have Colin. Colin, say hi to everybody.
Hey.
There's Colin. And we have Chris. And we tell Chris to say hi to everybody, but you're just going to hear him because we have some technical difficulties with his camera.
Greetings all, and from the disembodied voice.
Technical problems?
Voice, yeah.
Technical problems here on Podcast at Ground Zero? Say it ain't so.
We never, ever have problems. So, tonight, we are going to be talking about Mad Max Fury Road. So, if you're just joining us, spoiler alert! Okay, we are talking about a movie that is currently in the theaters. If you have not seen the movie and you don't want it to be ruined for you, shut us off now. Do not listen, because we are going to talk about this movie ad nauseum, and you're going to find out everything about the movie. And if you
we're going to ruin it. We're going to ruin it.
We're going to ruin it like, never mind. But we're going to ruin it, like your baby, like your babysitter ruins your childhood. Okay. But I don't know what that means.
Ooh, wow, that's dark. That's dark, Jared.
Well, that's where we go here, okay? And, thank you, Colin. Yes, ruin it like Michael Bay, but we're not going to ruin it that bad, okay? But which is what I thought was going to happen with all the explosions. I thought it was going to be a Michael Bay explosion, but it didn't. So, okay, so we're going to talk about Mad Max Fury Road again. If you're just joining us, spoiler alert, and that's the last time I'm going to say it. So if you jump in the middle of it and the movie's ruined for you, too fucking bad. Yeah. I said it enough times, okay?
We have no sympathy. We're even going to put it on the YouTube video at the front. Spoiler alert. In fact, that's the name of the episode 45. Fury Road, spoiler alert.
Yeah, that's what I should have called it. So, all right, so the only thing I have related to in the news, which I'm not going to go into too much this week because I want to get started on the conversation, was I did come across yet another Kickstarter post-apocalyptic game, which was called Blackout: Journey into Darkness. He calls it a post-apocalyptic dungeon crawl. It looks interesting. It's uses miniatures and tiles and she set up these adventures. Looks kind of interesting. I threw it on it, and we'll see what happens with that. I have.
Would that be a post-apocalyptic bunker crawl?
Hero Quest.
Yeah. You know what? You're right. It seems like a kind of a Hero Quest-y kind of Hero Quest, or what's the new modern Fantasy Flight one?
Descent.
Descent. Thank you. Yeah. I guess it's kind of along those lines because it's got you lay out your maps, you have your figures, you could have a GM, you could play solo, you could play co-op. So it looks interesting. It's just there's definitely been a rash of post-apocalyptic games on Kickstarter lately, which is a good thing. Not all of it's good, not all of it's bad. It's some of it looks interesting. I backed a couple of them myself.
Much like the apocalypse itself, not all of them are awesome.
Not all of them are awesome.
Not all of them are awesome. I mean, We've already had our worst of show, so we know.
And we can always have more worse stuff. I would show you. I had a couple more things, but I left them downstairs, unfortunately. I finally got, and I'll show it next time. After it's been like 2 years since the Morrow Project Kickstarter closed, I finally started to get some material from it after a couple of years. I got my Morrow Project Challenge coin, so. I may have to run downstairs again, So I got that.
If you leave, I'm gonna start telling a doghead story again.
Yeah, I know. So I got my challenge coin, and I got from the Metamorphosis Alpha Kickstarter. They didn't send me they did a 11 by 17 poster of the original cover which I got, which I didn't originally get. I noticed that it was missing, so I got that in, so I could hang it up on the wall. So anyway, that's all I really got. Do you have anything that you noticed, Scott, lately that was interesting to note?
No, I don't have any. I don't have any apocalypse. I was hoping to get out. I was hoping to get out and see Fury Road this weekend one more time. And I got to tell you that there have been very few films that have actually coaxed me into going into a movie theater twice in maybe a decade. I can't remember the last time I was actually considering going back and seeing a film again. But I had my car apocalypse. As soon as I went out to get in the car with the wife to go see the movie, my car died, which was not a good sign considering the themes we encounter in Fury Road. But okay. That's the most apocalyptic thing that's happened to me is my car failed me at a critical moment for going to see Fury Road again. So I'll have to rely on my original take on the film. And
that's fine. So, all right. So here's the first thing I want to bring up. Now I want to get other people's opinions on this because Scott's like, what? Do you even know what I'm going to ask?
Oh yes, of course I do. It's the thing that's it's the burr under your saddle ever since the film came out and people started blah blah blahing on the internet about it. You had one burr under your saddle more than any other.
Okay, now according to Mr. Miller, he has gone way out of his way to make sure that he says repeatedly that this film was not a remake or re-envisioning of the Mad Max franchise. He said if he was, with a gun to his head, if he had to place it in the chronology, he would place it maybe 10 years after Beyond Thunderdome. This is what he said, 10, 15 years. And that the other three movies, there's no order to them, which is absolute fucking bullshit because it was Mad Max, Road Warrior, Thunderdome. It was absolutely in order, in that order. There was no, chronology to it, which is absolute bullshit. So I am calling him on his bullshit that it is absolutely a fucking remake of the franchise because he does not want to call it a remake because when you call something a remake
or a reboot,
a
reboot's the thing that I think turns people off very badly.
And he didn't want people to go. And we could go into further detail later why I feel it is a remake, and that's fine. So I'm going to start with our guest first before we get to you, Scott, because we've kind of talked about it. I'm going to start with Ford. Ford, what is your opinion?
Hey.
Is it a remake or not? Or
I would say not. What I saw it as is kind of like Legends and Tales of Old, where in this case it's like, you got your post-apocalyptic thing, everybody's got their trucks settled down or around the fire, and this is another tale of the man called Max. And Thunderdome was another tale of the man called Max. Road Warrior, another tale of the man called Max. These are all tales told like, legends back in the day. And sure, there may be some kind of chronology to it. There may be some changes here and there with, details and embellishments and stuff. And, may not quite flow together like we see in modern sort of thing. So when I saw it, I kind of took it like that this is like Wastelander tales of the man called Max, and this is just another tale.
Okay, very, very valid points, and I do have some similar opinions. Like I do have some agreements with what you said there. Just a quick thing, guys. If everybody could just go up to the top of your Google toolbar up there, there is one thing for adjusting your bandwidth, which is right. It's not the gear. It's next to the gear. It has like the way, like your Wi-Fi thing. I would just recommend everybody just please be on medium bandwidth. Don't be on the highest bandwidth because it will affect everybody's connections and we might get a little lag. Okay, just to try to help keep everybody connected. So thank you for it. I appreciate that. Colin, what is your take on that?
So I went into the movie, thinking it's going to be a sequel or something like that, but it's really hard to place it because there's a lot of things in the movie that seem like anachronisms. where someone just gave him a giant ass bucket of money, and he's like, I'm going to make a really cool film and throw stuff into it. That if it does take place, fourth in the order, there's no way that would still exist. And then in some ways, like you were saying, it seems like a retelling, like someone's behind it. So I mean, it could be a lot of things because it's not. To me, it wasn't quite clear exactly what the story is. It's kind of open, kind of almost like the Bible or something. Anybody who wants to read into it can read many things into it. But as far as like all the technology and things into it, it seemed like it would come between the first movie and the Road Warrior, because there's a lot of stuff in this film that doesn't exist in the Road Warrior or in Beyond Thunderdome. Everything looks newer. They've got all kinds of really cool crap all piled together, and it doesn't make sense to me that it's like 50 years after. So that would lead it to either be between the first and second movie, or like you're saying, a complete reboot where he's just reimagined what crap is available in the wasteland after the apocalypse at any given moment. So I don't know. I kind of waffle about it depending on whatever day of the week it is where I'm remembering watching the movie, because it is kind of ambiguous, and you can read into it what you want.
Absolutely, and I think that's part of how we did make that. And he has said, I can't find the article again, but there is, because there's so many articles out there about that he has kind of placed it, into the future. It's definitely. I think he had almost said, I'd read at one point, like about 40 years after the apocalypse, but then when the apocalypse happened is very interpretive. Is it when everything started to break down and we were just kind of in that pre-apocalypse phase, like Mad Max, or when everything actually finally definitively ended? So
clearly the apocalypse happened in the early 80s, where you wouldn't have those XDs laying around. You wouldn't have all the old like Cadillacs and stuff. So you got this really old stuff, and then they throw in that tracked ripsaw vehicle, just for the hell of it. They got a rubber-tracked tank with a car stuck on top of it, and it's clearly not anything that would last that long after the apocalypse, unless you have, thousands of those rubber tank treads laying around that are only good if you're trying not to tear up roads or make a cool vehicle, to use up the bucket of money they gave you.
That's true. That's true. All right, thank you, Colin. Now we're going to go to the man with no face, Chris. Chris, what is your take on the continuation of the story? Is it a reboot? Is it a retelling? What did you feel about the movie?
Well, it ultimately comes down to the single biggest star of the movie that isn't in all of them, the V8. Basically, the V8 only appears in the first movie and the Road Warrior. And in the second movie, we see it disappears, basically gets destroyed. It's never beyond Thunderdome. As a result, Fury Road, just by the fact that we have V8 as it all, it's got to be somewhere between the first movie and the second movie, assuming it's not just an anthology where they just sort of stick it in whatever at this point. Because it only appears, he loses it, and then he gets it back at the end. And it doesn't play a very big, theme as far as that's concerned.
Very good. Yeah. Again, everything everybody said is valid, and I have varying opinion. How I feel about it takes a little bit from what everybody said. Now, Scott, thank you, Chris. Scott, what is your take on that, so the viewers can know?
I'm going to have to go, and I think maybe we talked a little bit about this last time. It's absolutely a reboot. It is not a sequel. It is not in the chronology, because for a number of reasons, not the least of which is, I don't believe it fits into the chronology simply because of things like not just things like the V8 Interceptor, all right, which was sort of not just that, but it's also they reset the characters to 0, all right. Max, as he appears in Fury Road, is like the Max that we find at the beginning of Road Warrior, okay. They've reset that character to this sort of, burned out, hollow guy who cares only about himself, isn't involved with anybody else's goals or aspirations. He has nothing that he's doing except surviving. He's not living. That's the character at the beginning of Road Warrior, except he's even more empty than he is at Road Warrior, because at least in Road Warrior he has Dog, so he has some kind of companion. There's not even that at the beginning of this. The chronology, putting this into the chronology simply fails in every way it can possibly fail. It doesn't work because Max's hair is long at the beginning of the film. They cut it off at the beginning of the film. It doesn't work because the V8 Interceptor is back, despite the fact we saw it destroyed in the Road Warrior with the self-destruct device. It can't be before that happened because we saw the car get flipped over, resurrected by the War Boys, and then crushed into so much kibble between a couple of trucks. It's destroyed again in the movie. That's not that vehicle did not come back. All right, it does not come back from that. And the idea of finding another last of the V8 Interceptors is particularly insulting. The film is a reboot because it is filled with tips of the hat to the old films that do not chronologically fit in, like the music box, like the double-barreled shotgun. That's not Max's at the beginning of Fury Road. It's just something that turns up laying on the ground during the course of the film. It's in one of the War Boys' cars, I guess, that gets flipped over.
But
that sawed-off shotgun was his iconic sidearm for the first film and the second film.
Well,
right?
let me counter that. Not that I want to play devil's advocate, but I will. Is we only saw him briefly before he got in the car and took off and it crashed. It could have very well been in the car, and somebody could have taken it from him.
Yes, it could have also been put there by Reptoids, but we didn't see that either. So unless they show it to me on the goddamn screen, it didn't happen.
I'm just saying, because remember, because he was the blood bag for that one guy, and he was obsessed with all his stuff.
And he took his jacket. But at the same time, I'd have to go back and see the beginning of the film and see if it's on his belt when he boot heels the lizard at the beginning. Maybe it was, but I didn't see it.
Neither did I. I was just playing devil's advocate with you.
Also, it can't fit into the chronology because the girl they show getting killed is not the age. I mean, she's like 8 years old. She's like 6 to 8 years old when they do his flashbacks. His daughter was an infant, right, or a toddler. How old was that kid?
Yeah,
son. Oh, and even better, it was a son. I forgot. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they've done a gender swap on his lost family member. They've aged it 8 years. She died in a way almost completely unconnected to the death in Mad Max. This is a complete...
Well, she got run over by a vehicle. That's the only similarity.
Yes, yeah. And so it is absolutely a reboot. They're starting over from zero as far as I'm concerned, and that's fine. It's been 30 years. What the hell? I don't really have a problem with them starting over at zero. I just was sort of, bored and by the whole desperate attempt to fit it into the chronology. Like it's like the Star Wars saga. It's all got to fit together. Well, guess what? That shit doesn't fit together either. It wasn't planned from the beginning either. So neither is this, and I'm perfectly happy accepting Fury Road as it stands on its own merits. But the weird sort of fan genre nerd game of trying to make it all fit together, like back in the 90s when we tried to pretend that the X-Files made sense and that all the episodes are connected. No, they weren't. They were completely made up on the draw by a team of writers who did one episode, one monster the week after another. And in a certain sense, this film's the same way. It's just starting over from scratch. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm just a little insulted they tried to hide it from us.
Well, and I agree, and it's not just the fanboys trying to make the connection, especially with the fanboy theory out there about how it's the feral kid.
Yes, that Max is the feral child.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, I know. Have you guys seen that theory out there that it's the feral child? Ford, Colin, Chris, have you read that, seen that?
Yeah.
I'm afraid I haven't, and it sounds kind of wrong in a couple of levels here, ultimately.
How about every level?
Every level. We'll talk about that in a second. But,
Colin, what were you about to say, Colin?
I won't buy it unless Lucas gets in there and adds in a CGI metal boomerang, then maybe.
Careful man. That could be Jar Jar Binks.
Oh,
You say the devil's name, he will appear. Okay, so just don't jinx us like that.
So we definitely have a mix of opinions, and that's good, because we all can't have the same opinions, but shut up, Scott. But
I'm just I just saying that the reason this episode's happening is because somebody expressed an opinion on the internet, and you read it, and that aggression will not stand, man.
Well, no, I felt it was a hot topic because a lot of people are talking about there's a lot of here's the cars, here's the this, here's the that, here's the this, here's that big, here's this theory. So I figured it was a pretty hot topic, and it fits into what we talk about. So I figured, hey, let's talk about the movie. So I am in Scott's camp about that. I absolutely, and it's insulting again that Miller won't pony up that it is a reboot. I absolutely think it's a reboot of this franchise, and that's fine, because it is basically a retelling of Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, because they took all the major elements that were in that movie and they added other themes and other stories. You got your bad warlord, you have somebody seeking redemption, because a lot of the movie's really not really about Max. It's really about the other characters, and that's fine. Max seems almost incidental in the story. But, the music box, he has the car, he gets it destroyed, he gets, taken, they have the chase scene with the tanker, all those same elements. He's kind of retelling the story, and again, that's fine because it's been 30 years. It's a new generation. There's so many people. A lot of these people, take your average 16-year-old, the 20-year-old. Have they ever seen any of the movies? Unless they're really, really into geek, probably not. But this is a way to get a movie out.
Listen, sir, I've been hearing from people left, right, and center who only just saw Road Warrior, the second film, this year. As Fury Road's gearing up, people have going out and seeing it for the first time, and I can't even imagine a world where you are in North America or Europe or Australia and you have not seen Road Warrior. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Oh yeah, I know. I mean, I saw it in the theaters when it came out, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. But so it's definitely, again, it's a reboot. I also, if I wanted to say, okay, if it's not a reboot, it definitely doesn't fit in the chronology, and I kind of, could also go with the opinion Ford had said that it's kind of somebody telling the story of Max, their remembrance of Max, because maybe think of it as this. Maybe that Mad Max is become a genre, like a Western. It's like the Mad Max films, and he's the only maybe consistent character, kind of like the Man with No Name from the Clint Eastwood films.
Didn't you also throw out Bond, that there cannot be continuity in Bond because...
Yeah, it can't be continuity in Bond either because you're just changing who it is. But it's a continuing story with different people, so it's kind of like retelling that story, or like, for a fistful of dollars, $2 more, those movies, they're not connected. They're just different stories about that character. And that could be the case as well, but they don't fit in the original. They do not fit at all in the three movies that happened, for sure. So he's just kind of telling stories of Mad Max, and it has to be a separate. You have to divide it. You can't link those to the other movies because there's no connectivity between them at all. So now he's just telling stories, and we'll see what happens. I think they're trying to greenlight another movie. Let's see what happens. Is the next movie going to be a direct descendant of Fury Road, or is it just going to be another story about Mad Max that has no connection to Fury Road? Time will tell.
Yeah. Well, George Miller didn't let us down on this one. I mean, good one, Colin. Prequel. We can always see the prequel.
That never ends badly.
Yeah, except the prequel will be all about Furiosa and how she lost that arm. Max Schmax and whatever. Certainly, I'd be perfectly happy with stories set in that world that had no connection to Max.
Oh, that would be fine.
That would be fine. It's an interesting post-apocalyptic world that they created. Both the first one and this new one, because let's be honest, holy shit, was there a lot more radiation as part of the story than there ever was. And they made one joke about radiation in Thunderdome. Yeah, and that's it. The whole story of radiation and fallout and the effects on the human body were huge as part of this one.
Absolutely. So,
you know what else it reminded me of, Jared? This film reminded me of Fallout 3, the one set in D.C., because it was a reboot. In some ways, Fallout 3 was an attempt to take some of the previous games, like Fallout 1, 2, and Tactics, and distill them all down and re-summarize them for the players, right? So you got your sort of tutorial in the world of Fallout as it existed on PCs, except in the format of a console game.
That's so. What do you think about that? What do you think about that take on it, Ford? Ford.
Blues Ford.
Yeah.
No, I'm here.
Well, apparently he fell asleep while I was talking, which I can perfectly understand.
No. I'm thinking about that.
Okay.
I tend to agree. I tend to agree.
Mr. Boyd.
Yeah, that makes sense. Again, I think it's pretty ambiguous. I mean, you can't really, you can't really go one way or the other. Everybody can make a compelling argument for just about anything with this, which aggravates me in many ways. I want it to be one way or the other, and it's just not. I mean, they're like you guys said. There's all the anachronisms from the the earlier films. They're pointing out their little the hat nods too, and then just other pieces that just absolutely do not fit. So. Yeah, it's a reboot, or like was brought up, it's somebody telling the story and they're getting little things wrong, because who really cares if it was a son that was toddling around, run over by bikers, or if it was a little girl that was run over by this giant-ass cool truck in a much more interesting way to tell the story.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it could be anything. And George Miller is not helping because he's giving hundreds and hundreds of interviews where he's just a little bit different on each one.
You know what would have been awesome is... Road Warrior is obviously told by the feral child, and at the end of Thunderdome, your summation is given by
the girl.
The girl whose name is escaping me. I can't remember her name. But if the narration at the beginning had not been Max, if the narration at the beginning had been Furiosa, and then she had been the bookend for it. That would have completely sold me on Ford's theory, that it's people telling their story of how they encountered Max and getting it slightly different every single time. That would have been sort of perfect if she had been the bookend, the framing device.
Well, ultimately, he's become an urban myth in a post-apocalyptic world. He's a mysterious man that comes in, does stuff, and leaves without leaving a trace. Damage.
Like the man with no name in all of those Clint Eastwood stories, he just comes in and does what he has to do. And again, I'm fine with that, and I understand Colin's frustration about how it's so ambiguous. Because you know how we are. We want answers. We want it to be lined up. We got to have it in a row. And I know I've read some people are like, why does it have to be like that? Because that's how we are. But you're right, Colin. It's too open for interpretation, and you could talk to 10 different people, and every single person will have a different take on the movie, on it. And that's, like you said, that's frustrating. But you know what? Maybe that was Mr. Miller's master plan.
Yeah,
it's really no different than the old tales.
Exactly. So, all right.
Well, right off the bat, let's go back to one of everybody's famous old books. Doesn't the Old Testament Genesis start off by telling how the world was made, and then gets done with that version, and then immediately starts over and tells a different version about how the world was made? Aren't there like two different versions of Genesis in Genesis? If the Bible can get away with it,
Roughly.
George Miller can get away with it.
Absolutely. Okay, so
I agree.
all right, so now so we got some bases there. Now let's hit some baseline questions here. Again, on this, because the way I'm seeing on the screen, I'm seeing Ford, Colin, and Chris. Starting with Ford.
Yes.
Ford, favorite character in the Fury Road film?
I like Furiosa, but I'll have to say, not necessarily character, but characters. I liked the old ladies. The old ladies there.
Oh, hell yeah.
It was just a total mind-blowing to see. I mean, we see all these old, veteran guys out there, shotguns and rifles and stuff. To see that sort of idea in a female sense was just, I felt that was pretty darn cool.
And they, from what I read, they all did their own stuff too.
Yes.
A lot of their own stunts too, and rode motorcycles.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And I thought that was the best part. Just all that cast of I mean, as I recall, I've seen some of the actresses in other roles here and there, bits and pieces. But just to have that conglomeration there of the old veteran guard. It's left over, and it's in this time it's women, not men.
Deadly grannies.
Yeah.
It was a pack of deadly grannies.
Oh,
in a good way.
Yeah.
Not cheesy, in a good way.
Grannies of the
That's
Apocalypse.
what I liked about it.
Razor, thank you, Chris.
There you go.
Or we could equate it back to we could make a Monty Python reference. Hell's grannies from that one episode.
Nice.
There you go.
Put the kettle on.
Because that was the first thing when you started talking about that, I could picture them on their little motor scooters down the streets. Yeah, totally. But because I like making references to Monty Python, the TV show, not the Holy Grail, which that's the only thing anybody ever quotes.
Because you're old school.
That's right. So
old school nerd.
Quite.
Colin,
Mr. Boyd.
Favorite character or characters?
Yeah, I liked a lot of the way that the things were portrayed. Like, I like the little old ladies. Everything about them. I like the fact that they're using muskets and things. So I think he put more thought into them than he put into a lot of the other characters. And then it's these little technical aspects that draw me back out and piss me off. So they're all riding these old motorcycles that would be around, and then someone goes cruising by in a brand new motorcycle with an extended rear fork, and it annoys the crap out of me. So they threw a bunch of, old-timey burlap sacks and shit all over it, but it still had that brand new motorcycle fork underneath it, and it just pissed me off. So it's little things like that would grab me in this film and ruin it. I like the warlords, but each one of them would have something that just would piss me off and pull me out of the film and just make me just rage for no reason at all. So it's just, I don't know.
You're a man after our own heart, Colin.
I know. It's like I think Colin's actually worse than I am about that stuff.
It's like looking in the mirror, Jared.
My God.
I have to ask. What was it about the each warlord? It was the thing that would pull you out after they started to establish the warlord.
It would either be the vehicle or something in the surroundings. It's like he goes to find, when Immortan Joe goes to find his missing women, he's got a giant-ass bank safe up in that mountain. It's like, what the hell, I couldn't believe that. Fine, a riveted iron door, a piece of wood, a stack of corpses that are all wired together, fine, but not a bank safe yanked up into that mountain. It's just...
Well, in their defense, they were hauling giant trucks and stuff.
He just twisted it and opened it. I mean, he just twisted it, not even locked. It's like, gee, you really think they're in there if it's not locked? I mean... So...
Nice.
Yeah. He's all surprised. Oh, they're gone. And there's this little old lady here who's pointing a gun at me for no reason. Like she's gonna not use it. It's like, why give her a gun if she's not gonna use it? Sure, you're showing the gun, but she didn't use it. It was just dumb.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah, I was thinking it'd be a really short movie. He walked into that bank safe, and she blew him all over it.
It could have fizzled out. He could have taken it to the arm. It could have bounced off of his fake muscles that they're trying to hide a really old ass guy with, so the people that are following him think he's immortal. Something other than her shooting straight up. It could have been anything. That could have been armored, whatever, transparent aluminum or whatever the hell that stuff was. But no, she shoots into the ceiling, and then they just, So it's just little things like that. He had 30 years to not make mistakes that would piss me off, because that's why he made this film. It's for me, and every few minutes it would make me angry.
All right, I like the armor. I like the fake muscular armor to hide the saggy, fat, cancerous body. That shit that goes all the way back, you see that in the Middle Ages. There's a suit of Henry VIII's armor up in the Tower of London, which has got this giant gut on it, right? And it's just enormous
I've seen that.
armor.
Right.
But it's got this cod piece that is like, this big around and like 2 feet long, so that his dick sticks out beyond his enormous bloated belly. Seeing that and then seeing Immortan Joe's armor with the mask and the whole 9 yards, that worked for me. The idea that he would have the fake suit to look tougher.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't against the suit. I'm just saying it could have been bulletproof, and she could have at least shot him with it.
And that would have been even better, because then the suit would have had multiple purposes.
Right, and if she was alive that long, you'd figure she'd be just a little harder of a person, because no woman is going to survive in the apocalypse, that long unless they're super hot and kept in an unlocked bank vault, or B, they're able to kill people.
I thought, now, she didn't shoot at the ceiling. Didn't he knock the barrel up into the ceiling?
Yeah, because she didn't have enough sense to pull the trigger.
To pull the trigger
30 feet away, 40 feet away, 10, 9,
Got it. All right.
Gotcha. So let's.
I'm going to go back and ask Colin again what he thought about the other warlords.
Yeah, let's circle back to that. Let me talk to Chris.
Okay.
Yay!
We want to hear Chris's. Well, Chris, what was your favorite character or characters in the film?
This is like picking diamonds out of sapphires at this point. The heroes, the villains, the various characters, the side characters, heck,
The
even
cars.
the bizarre effects. Oh, heck yeah. Heck, the buildings.
No, the vehicles are going to be a whole separate question. Okay.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm not sure.
Okay. But if I had to pick one, there's no doubt in my mind. It's a character that is not really a hero, not really a villain, but he sold the show. The Doof Warrior.
Thank you.
Oh, boy.
Dude,
Wow.
he brought metal. No more needs to be said.
I am 100% in agreement with Chris. I just love that. He didn't do anything, but I love that fucking character because the insanity of Joe. That you know what? I'm gonna bring my soundtrack with me. They made this giant rig of drums with air conditioning ducts to channel the sound and the guitar, the flames, and you'd hear music in the background, like it's the soundtrack to the movie. And then you see the car pull up, and he's actually playing it. It wasn't like.
And it's shooting fire, I tell you.
Yeah, it was great because it wasn't just we're hearing the incidental music of the soundtrack. No, they're bringing the soundtrack with them.
Not to mention he's in red long johns, with his suspended from what looks like what?
It was like bungee cords.
Bungee cords. He's suspended. His feet aren't on the ground. He's
Van
wearing
Halen
red
video.
long johns, and he's blindfolded, and his whole face looks like it's been burned off. I mean,
He was blind, as you saw later.
Mhm.
I remember, am I wrong, or do I remember no lips and just teeth sticking out of that guy?
Yeah, he was all fucked up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
For
yeah.
purposes, it was the retirement plan. He really
Leave
couldn't
it
do
to-
anything else.
leave it to
Yeah.
Immortan Joe. Clearly, Immortan Joe's state, has a place for the handicapped. They don't just leave them out in the desert when they lose their eyesight. They teach them an important skill,
The
and keep them
guitar.
employed. Yeah, it's. I think we're really undervaluing Immortan Joe's contributions to wasteland civilization here.
Oh yeah, but the character, I just loved it because he was the bard. He was giving everybody plus 5 to hit. Because he was
And worse, he was like Jaws' theme. When he was coming, you knew they weren't far behind.
Oh, thank you for that. I got the soundtrack, and I was hoping there'd be just some tracks with just him playing the guitar, but unfortunately, there's not. I just want him play the music that just the guitar and the drums. That's all I want to hear. I don't want to hear all the other incidentals. I just want to hear that fucking metal guitar with the flames.
Oh yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
But they haven't helped me out with that yet, so I'm kind of hoping.
Don't worry, this is the internet. There are people out there right now working on this for you
Thank
that
you.
have got a hold of the recording and are stripping the layers out
Mhm.
right now so they can put it up on some file share of just the Doof Warriors greatest hits, the Doof Warriors Christmas album. Don't worry, it's coming.
I wait with anticipation.
Maybe the Doof Warrior can.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
Van Halen's
Van
pulling him
Halen's on
off.
YouTube.
He should go on tour.
Oh my God.
Okay, you know what? He could go on tour because you know what? Fucking what's his name? I can't remember this fucking name from Metalocalypse, who formed
Yes.
Death Clock.
Oh, good lord.
Fucking Brendan
Explosion.
Brandon Small.
Brendan Small, yes.
Brandon Small created fucking Metalocalypse, created Death Clock, played the music, sang the songs. If he can fucking go on tour, and by the way, I've seen Death Clock play twice. Thank you. And I have seen them play twice, and it was a fantastic experience. If that fictional fucking band could play, the Doof Warrior could go on tour.
Oh, I want the Doof Warrior at the Budokan. I mean, I think that's the only answer. Live at
Premier
the
McDragon Con in Atlanta.
Exactly.
All right,
Yes,
so
he would cram that city tight with people just there, coming to see the Doof Warrior. I mean that.
So the Doof Warrior goes
get downtown Atlanta cleared out.
So if the Doof Warrior goes on tour, are we all in? Are we all going?
Oh, hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
And all I gotta say is 2 words: roadshow.
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 Oh, it would be like Jim Rhodes, almost.
Yeah, but the concession stand is going to be female breast milk, so I'm not sure how that's going to work out.
Yeah, I quite
Well, Max sure liked it.
We'll get to that later. Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to be able to get to it. We're just going off on some tangents here. So, Scott, favorite character?
That's tough. Favorite character is tough. As much as I was, Tom Hardy did fine, but I gotta admit, Tom did not bring it the way Gibson did back in the day. And he's weaker in Mad Max and he's weaker in Thunderdome, but that performance in Road Warrior is really tough to beat. 2 days ago I saw a tanker that'd hold that rig. That line where he lays it out. Where here's the rest of the movie. If you want to get out of here, talk to me. That was a great moment. And Gibson really managed to sell that. He managed to sell being broken, perhaps because he is more broken than perhaps we realize. But he sold being broken. He sold being.
We only knew back then what we know now about him. Right?
That amazing relationship with him and Bruce Spence. Somebody I was sorry not to see in this. I would have loved to have seen Bruce Spence show up and do something. I don't know. It's
so this movie.
It's tough because nobody really reached out and grabbed me. Furiosa was interesting. The grannies were really interesting. I'll tell you what I was impressed by was I'm not sure if I should say this is favorite character because it maybe have more to do with like favorite what to do with a character. I loved that they took the most pregnant of Immortan Joe's wives, that she used herself as a human shield at one point to keep Immortan Joe from killing Furiosa. And then they fucking killed her 5 seconds later. I mean, when that door comes off the car and she goes under the truck, that was a signal that, guess what? Anyone can die. We could kill anyone in this movie. And we ran over a pregnant woman. What else are we going to do to you? And I really felt that really worked for me as where they took a character. They attempted to make the character, interesting or attractive, or have them do something brave or gutsy, and then bam, killed them. That impressed me a lot. Honestly, I was sort of enjoying the Bullet Farmer, who was one of the 2 warlords. I wanted to see
pulling the bullets out of his fucking gums.
Yeah. the one thing I wanted to see from that guy was he was the only guy to complain about this fucking plan, where he says, all this over a family squabble. What I was thinking it was going to turn into, and sadly it didn't, which is why I was a little disappointed in the characters, I was waiting for somebody to just fucking rebel against Immortan Joe and say, we're not doing this anymore. We're down 50 bodies and 10 cars, and, fuck it. We're out, and cause some sort of, internal strife, or have to have that put down, or something like that. Because I'm always happy when villains stop being suicidal maniacs and go, you know what, fuck this. I have so many better places to be than this.
Well, that would be Beyond Thunderdome Anti-Entity, when she finally said, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, it's like, well, yes, since I can't, there's nothing I'm going to get out of killing you. Fuck it. I'm not concerned anymore. But,
So again, what is your answer? Or do you
don't have to answer? I'm going to go with, I don't really have a good answer. I'm going to have to go with, I really thought that...
you have a gun to your head. You have a gun to your...
the gun to my head, I'm going to have to go with, I think I'm going to have to go with Immortan Joe, because he was an interesting warlord.
Also the toe cutter in a previous film.
Yes, of course. I mean, it helped that he gave us a little continuity. But I like the idea that they took an old, decaying warlord, not Lord Humongous, not Wes, not the toe cutter, not somebody at the top of their game, but somebody who's at they're sliding into decrepitude, and it's only going to get worse. They're only going to be weaker. They're only going to be, as bad guys go, I like that. You don't usually see where the villain is previously a badass, but is now falling apart. So I thought I was really happy with the concept of Immortan Joe, and all of his plans, all of his evil plans, made a lot of sense logically and internally, even going after the women. On the grounds that he's desperately trying to create a dynasty that isn't dying of cancer.
Oh yeah, well, what Chris just said, that the death of the pregnant woman is the death of hope, because that's like you just said, that's their hope, is we need more babies, we need healthier babies, because the war boys, you can just write them off, because they have a shelf life.
Yeah, it is.
Like everywhere.
Yeah.
But okay, so next question, because I was trying to get get a lot of quick questions. Favorite vehicle, because this movie is about vehicles. There's a lot of vehicles. There's a lot of driving vehicles and jumping vehicles and exploding vehicles and musical vehicles and badass vehicles. Ford, favorite vehicle in the film?
Oh, it's got to be the tanker. The tanker, followed by the chase trucks with the guys on the pendulums there going down, grabbing people.
Okay.
The truck.
Well, okay.
The truck as a whole.
Yeah, I will talk about the guy. I'll talk about the Cirque du Soleil guys when I bring up the question of the thing you hated most about the film. So, all right, so that's your
But the truck, definitely the truck. The tanker.
The truck was badass. I loved the part when the fucking engine was on fire and they dropped the cowcatcher and it kicked the sand up over the fucking engine to put out the fucking fire.
That was fucking awesome.
Totally fucking awesome. That's what I liked a lot about this film. There was a lot of smart shit in this film, along with the dumb shit, which Colin points out. But there was a lot of smart.
Sand in your engine doesn't put out a fire. It just clogs up your air filters and/or gets into the carburetors and everything else through those really cool blowers, and it kind of gives you other small problems.
But it was still fucking cool though.
Right. Yeah. Cool, yes. If we go with cool rather than something that pisses me off, yeah.
Yeah, it was a metal moment. Let's leave it at that.
It was quite metal. It
was very metal. It was brutal because totally brutal. But of course, because you get the sand in the carburetor doesn't work. Because the same thing with they're throwing gasoline down the carburetor to get mixed the fuel.
That actually works. It's stupid to do as a person who doesn't want to be poisoned, but that really does work. until you set the whole truck or car on fire, which I've been a party to.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah, well, that's how blowers work. Blowers forces more air into the carburetor because the more air you have, the more horsepower you could get. And then I guess adding the gasoline to it gives you even more horsepower. But like you said, it'll.
Was it gasoline or was it starter fluid? I mean,
that was gasoline. They were just spitting more gas in, so you got more gas going in than the vehicle can put in on its own. Yeah. That's basically what that is. And it's cool until you get gas that's kind of flowing in the air, burning onto the engine, and then something else sets it on fire, and now your engine's on fire.
Yeah, because normally, Scott, you're limited by the fuel that's coming through the jets, that come through. So you have a limited amount of fuel that's going into the cylinders. By putting more fuel into the carburetor, it's getting more fuel into the cylinders, so it's giving it more gas for bigger explosions, for more power. Mm-hmm. But then, like Colin said, it's going to float around. It's just going to fuck you up. It's like basically write your engine off if you're going to do that. So, all right. So thank you, Ford. Colin?
Yeah.
Favorite vehicle?
So my favorite vehicles, I like the motorcycles except for that one, and I really liked the little dune buggies with the spikes and shit all over them because I could actually picture building that for myself after the apocalypse. None of the other shit. The truck was cool, the rig that they're driving around, but none of the other ones felt reasonable to me to something I would be using to impale people driving through Ann Arbor, Michigan after the apocalypse.
Now, side note about the vehicle with all the spikes on it. The amount of spikes on that vehicle was the same amount of spikes that is on an Australian porcupine.
Now, why they thought that was important for us to know, I don't know, but they have established.
Just interesting little factoid.
You got to get some technical things right.
Exactly.
And when you have your priorities straight, then everybody knows.
Thank you, Colin. Chris, what was your favorite vehicle?
Well, ultimately, I think the best vehicles have already been spoken for, so instead I will take over other tactics when it comes down to that there. I loved how these basically shoestring bandits kept dropping fire bombs because they basically had nothing. Basically off their doom bed when they went through the second part of the ravine, and they were trying to get away from the actual rig there. It wasn't so much a cool vehicle because, let's be honest, you could probably find those things for relatively dirt cheap, but it was kind of awesome how they tried to use that to slow down, the war rig.
You mean the guys on the motorcycles? Where they jump over? Yeah, I really like those stunts, and I really like the use of the handheld bombs.
The motocross guys that they hired to do the stunts,
Yeah. Suicidal, but heck, it's the apocalypse. It's to be expected.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Scott, favorite vehicle?
That's tough. I was very charmed by the Peacemaker, even though it is one of the least practical vehicles in the film. The vehicles that I liked the most were the ones that had the least amount of vehicle in a vehicle. I mean, it was like, I heard you like Cadillacs, so I put some Cadillac in your Cadillac, bitches. And I got a little tired of some of those vehicles.
The only thing cooler than a Cadillac is two Cadillacs put together, okay?
Yeah. Those
kind of more Cadillac with that.
Yeah, there was that, and they did that also with the rig.
It was one thing at a time.
Yeah, they sort of had two cabs welded together into that rig, the war rig, I guess you'd call it. I realize how impractical the Peacemaker would be with those rubberized treads wearing out right away, essentially. But I did really enjoy the muscle car that they put over the top of the frame. The cars that I thought were sort of the most interesting ones were the ones that I guess I'm going to call it the Lancer vehicles, where they had the guy out front on the outside of the vehicle using contact explosives on the ends of poles to disable other vehicles. That whole idea, that worked for me. It was super crazy, but I like the idea of the contact explosives, the exploding spears. I like the guy out on the end of it being the gunner while somebody else is the pilot for the vehicle. I thought those vehicles, I guess that's the vehicle driven by Nooks, but there were several other vehicles similar to that. I guess I'm just going to call them the Lancers. Those are some of the most interesting vehicles in the whole thing. I can't say the last of the V8 Interceptors because they never gave it an opportunity to strut its stuff in the movie.
Yeah.
Ever.
That was probably the biggest disappointment. Hey, there's the V8, and it's gone.
And then here it is again,
Yeah.
and it's gone again.
It's gone.
And if they had let the V8, if they had taken that opening sequence and let Max show that he was a badass before they caught him, and show what the V8 Interceptor could do, I think I'd be a lot happier. I'm happy, but I can always be happier.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I agree. Yes, I would. I'm always going to default to the last of the V8 Interceptors. You know, because that fucking Falcon. I want to get the. I wish I had the money to pay the company that does the conversions and sends them over to the United States, because I would fucking have one. But I don't have that kind of money. It's because I remember reading up about 10 years ago it was about $50,000 to do that, so I'm sure it's even more now. But
you know, at the time, 50 was not a terrible price
for something like that. Nah, not real. A total custom job. I mean, they make the conversion kits. It's a matter of just getting the vehicle and then paying somebody to do the work for you. But I'm going to say, honorary mention. It's going to be the last of the V8 Interceptors, because I just love that fucking car to death. But it wasn't in the movie enough. So if I had to say another vehicle, I could say something like, what about that weird giant rig that the Spike Car people had that had the fucking crane on it that was tearing the cars apart? Which was really fucking cool. But that's again another close second. I'm gonna go with the theme for my favorite character. I'm gonna have to go with the Doof Warriors fucking transport. The metal truck with the speakers and the drums and the flames, because it was so ridiculous and so impractical and so over the top. I just fucking loved it. I just thought it was fan-fucking-tastic.
That did not look like the kind of vehicle you wanted to take a turn at more than 5 miles an hour in it before it just flopped over.
Oh, it was good in straight lines, just like the whole movie. All the vehicles, everything's great in straight lines, because that's what we can really do with these things, because they're not practical vehicles. No. All right.
No, they really weren't.
So I'm going to stick with the metal theme for the vehicle. Now, let's throw some other questions out here, because I kind of mentioned it before. Now, when I get to you, Colin, you're only allowed to say one thing, okay, about this, okay, because we know you have a list, that would rival Santa's naughty list, okay. Now, Ford, what was your least favorite thing about the movie?
It's tough. I'll have to. I have to agree with a couple other people that I saw the movie with, that a little bit more dialogue. They're kind of explaining things, or some of the backstory, kind of some of the, maybe a little bit more character interaction and stuff. Would have kind of put it up a little bit more. Oh, that, and of course, you don't see much of the V8 Interceptor, and that's what we're all coming for. Us old guys who've been into Mad Max, and it's like we see it for a little bit, then it's gone, and then same thing later on. Those are about my two big complaints about the whole thing there. If you want to say downside of the movie.
And then, but I agree with your points there, because a lot of people have said about the dialogue in the film, but then of course I've read all over the internet about how they're saying well, the movie just tells its story, and they didn't need to. It
does to a degree.
They would give you the hints, and they would tell you the things, but still, a little more information would have been helpful. So you didn't have to be like, oh, let me try to figure this out while I'm trying to enjoy the movie. Just a little more hints would have been a little nicer. I agree.
Help it smooth it out a little bit more, so that you're catching along with what's going on, rather than having to take a moment to go, oh, okay, that's what's happening.
At 2 hours long, I guess we're all waiting for it to come out on DVD with the director's cut that's going to throw an extra, 30 minutes?
50 hours or something they recorded. But,
Yes.
All right, thank you, Ford. Colin?
So I won't talk about technical aspects, but I think that car chase could have used another 30 minutes of story. Like he said, you know, it would have been better if there was a little more to the story at the beginning, or some pieces in the middle where they told a little more about things that are going on, not just it's a 2-hour car chase with a little bit of story here and there.
Agreed.
He's already done that.
Exactly. He's already done that with the Road Warrior, with the big chase scene. Again, more to my defense of how he's kind of retelling the story. He's retelling that same story because he's doing the same thing. Now, mind you, at the end of Beyond Thunderdome, they have another chase scene which seemed labored. They just kind of threw it in just to have a car chase scene, but that's a discussion for another show. So, all right, thank you, Colin. Yeah, agreed. Agreed. And again, a lot of the technical things, but again, to be fair, you got to give a little suspension of disbelief. But I agree with you that sometimes it's very difficult to let go of that suspension of disbelief, especially when it's like, oh my God, are you fucking kidding me? Really? Okay, that's too much.
Well, anytime the filmmaker strays into your area of expertise, that's the one that's always going to derail you and pull you out of what you're enjoying. It's just one of those things that happens a lot. And whenever I'm trying to do something creative or write something, I'm terrified of that. I'm absolutely terrified that I'm going to write some shit and someone's going to go, yeah, you realize that that particular make and model of pistol or that event did not happen for another 3 months from when you set the time period. I'm like, whoops, okay. It's tough, but and it's something that's really tough to guard against because the bigger the production, the less areas of specific expertise the creator or the primary creator, Mr. Miller, can have. And he's just going to have to rely more and more on people telling him what is or is not possible. And I do think, though, that it definitely came down to what was cool won out over what was responsible.
Absolutely. Because we're trying to make a cool, slick movie for a new generation. So.
Did you guys ever watch the I gotta throw one other thing about the cool versus...
Let's let Chris go. Let's let Chris go, though.
All right, let Chris first.
Okay. Chris, what did you least like about the film?
Generally, I liked the basic format. I loved how they showed not told, which is something that a lot of films have problems with lately. However, my problems are twofold. One, more V8. I think we discussed that to death at this point. And two, that really weird stilt scene that took a long time to figure out exactly what it was for. With the guys walking around on stilts in the Crow Valley. It's right in the middle. It's like, no explanation given. We don't figure it out till half an hour later, and it's like, are we in a Cronenberg flick?
Yeah, I know. Yes, the guys on stilts in the swamp, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Wait, the guys on stilts.
I figured it was leftover costumes from the Dark Crystal.
That's kind of my thought as well.
Yeah,
it looked like it.
It wasn't that they were on stilts. They were on stilts four-legged. All right, they were using their arms as well.
When did that happen? Did I miss that?
It's a 5. It's a 5 second.
It's just there long enough to make you go what, and then it goes off, and there's no explanation.
No, they do not return to it. Yeah.
I will admit I lost about 2 or 3 minutes of the film. Right.
That must have been it.
Yeah, because I had to go so bad. I had to go pee.
You amateur! What do you think that big bucket of popcorn is for? I had tears of blood running down my face having to pee. And I think it might have been tears of pee. I stuck it out. You fucking piker.
It hurt so bad. I had to go. I couldn't do. But it was right. It was right after Max destroyed the bullet farmer. And he was walking back, and he's like, okay, he's getting into the truck. Nothing's going to happen here. But then they come back in, and she's like, blah, blah, blah. And that's my story. I'm like, fuck! So,
Jared, nobody's saying that you're not supposed to pee. We're saying you're not supposed to get up.
At 46 years old, my bladder is not what it used to be. Sometimes I just can't do it.
Not
They
your
have a pill for
18-year-old women. Yes, they do. And diapers. I would suggest.
Oh, so I
swear by them.
should have got some astronaut diapers like that chick did and drove from Texas to
Yes.
Florida to kill her
Yes.
fucking lover? Is that what you're
Yes.
trying to say I should have done?
Yes. I think it's unanimous. Ford, diapers.
Yes.
Colin, diapers.
Diapers.
Yeah, diapers all the way.
Yes.
So Ford, do you have a connection with that woman who drove in the diapers or something? Because you really seem to enjoy that.
No, I remember getting a kick out of listening to the story a long time ago when it was mentioned. It just crazy how they were crazy.
That's a whole lot. That's a whole lot of crazy. And
There's crazy.
Yeah.
But then there's Florida astronaut crazy. Okay, that's all.
Yeah.
And Ford, I'm good at that. I am good at pulling these bullshit references out of nowhere on you that you already haven't heard in 5 to 10 years. That is my
It's
magic.
been about 10 years.
That is my magic. Whereas Scott's magic is the telling of the tale. He's definitely the bard. Telling stories.
Plus 2 to hit.
Plus 2 to hit. But Scott, what was your least
Everyone
favorite thing?
said it. Everyone said it. Not enough V8. I did not so much want someone to stop the film and bring out, Michael York as Basil Exposition to explain anything to me, but they could have showed me more. It felt like they were showing me things, but they showed them to me so fast because we got to get back to this car chase that I didn't get to see everything really well. It's a film that I feel like I could watch on DVD and slowly pick my way through it and watch sections over and over again.
Oh yeah.
Just to pick up all this detail that was crammed into it. Maybe there's going to be more in the director's cut. I don't know, but I could have used more V8 and I could have used more time to have them show me this world. I didn't want them to explain it, but I did want them to show me the world.
Well, yeah, because it's definitely there's definitely structure to this world. Because here's Morton Joe with the water. Here's down the street the guys with the gas. Down the streets the guys with the bullets. We have people roaming the wasteland. Don't go off the road because that's the so-and-so spiky people's area. And then the people in the mountains with the motorcycles. So there is definitely defined, we'll call them tribes.
Yes, color.
To this world. There's definitely tribe sections. There's a lot to this. It seems like a very rich world that he's creating because he definitely engages in world building in this film. But as we all agree, it's not that we needed to be told to, like spoon-fed, like, here, let's give you a voiceover, but if it could have shown us some more to let us figure it out and see it to understand it, that would have been a little better. I agree in that respect there for everybody.
True.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen a little more about the people's lives that grovel for the water. Like, what else do they do except sit there and wait for the water to come falling down? What do they eat? Where do they live? Do they just lay out in the dust and wait for water, and that's it?
Yeah.
I mean, sure, if they're working the elevator, like the guys that had walking on the stairs or on the gears.
Yeah.
I want to see them doing shit like that. I want to see them as the poor bastards who had to haul that bank vault door, up to Morton Joe's house. They clearly have something to do besides adore him and be thirsty. And it would have been nice to see some of that going on.
And so, as I mentioned before, what I liked, and I only name one thing, the thing that I liked the least about that fucking film was the goddamn Cirque du Soleil guys on the fucking pole. I absolutely fucking hated that. When I saw the commercials for this movie, I'm like, okay, Mad Max, car explosion chase scene. What the fuck is Cirque du Soleil doing in the middle of my goddamn Mad Max film? Okay?
Burning Man. It was Burning Man on wheels.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Braver man than me.
Either. That was in his storyboards from 10 years ago that he continued with the whole time, and nobody told him not to do it.
Oh my God! Is this like John Peters' giant spider?
Yeah, robot spider.
You know about the John Peters' giant spider, right? Okay. Is this like that? He couldn't get it into one film, so he just kept waiting and waiting until finally he could spring the Circus Olay guys.
Yeah, he's had his storyboards for at least 10 years that he's been working on.
Damn.
I absolutely.
Let's hope he's got it out of his system.
Fucking hated that because I thought it was like, okay, yes, you know, flame-throwing guitaring, speakers is ridiculous, and you know, this is ridiculous, but fucking Circus Soleil on car, you know, with the pole, for me, that was it. That was the line. That was the line.
Well, here's my question, Jared. Every other thing in there had multiple purposes as a weapon, right? I mean, the having your own soundtrack, we've known that that's awesome ever since, what was it? I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker, where what's his name? Bernie, I'm forgetting the actor's name, has his own Shaft music that follows him around through the entire movie, his soundtrack. We knew that was cool. Various of the vehicles had, you know, means of attack that made sense. Hey, that stuff where they fired the harpoons and then dropped
dropped anchor behind them to slow them down.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, I thought it was awesome. Colin, was there anything technically wrong with that?
No, that was perfectly reasonable. But,
dropping the spike bars. You remember dropping the spike bars was right out of fucking Car Wars. You know.
Cops use that. Oh, you're right. I forgot about that. You know, shooting the harpoons and then dropping anchor to slow them down. Awesome. It's like, oh, that makes sense. Unlike in the Road Warrior, where they shot the harpoon and it got caught up in the thing, dragged and bounced around. They were trying to be constructive, like, okay, let's put this little, you know, thing on the back to, you know, try to slow the truck down, pull it back. Awesome idea.
But the Circus Soleil guys on floppy poles were what, counterweighted with old engine blocks or something?
Yep.
Yeah, it was like Warlord Shadoofs.
Yeah. My question is, what other use besides grabbing a Morton Joe's wives off the back of a moving vehicle did this weapon system ever have?
If they found a well, they could have used them as shadoofs. You know, just drop the guy down a well to pick the water out. It's worked for Middle East for thousands of years, so of course it's going to show up in Australia to, you know, pluck people off of vehicles at 80 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I have it.
Or get close to throw a bomb on a vehicle.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
Refreshments for the staff.
all valid points, but I still fucking hated it.
Do you think you get a job on the end of the mutants, the War Boy Seduce? Do you think you get that job because it's a reward or because you've pissed somebody off? I mean,
it's an honor.
It's an honor. Is that what they tell them?
You get to Valhalla quicker that way.
Yes, it's an honor. Just like that suicide bomb fest. Here you go. we wouldn't give you this except we really like you.
Quit laughing. Yeah, you can see that there.
I will escort you directly to the gates of Valhalla. Now go shoot him. You know.
Yeah.
You know, that whole So all right, so that's least favorite things, and I don't know. I could continue on that vein there, but. I don't know.
All right. Well, so how about this? Let me throw out a question for our panel. We've talked about characters. We've talked about vehicles. We've talked about least favorite. Is there a concept that was executed during the film that was actually one of your favorite things that stood out? It's like, oh, that is a cool idea, or I like the way they executed it. Because I was talking about how, you know, they introduced the character. She's pregnant, she's brave, you know, she's got her shit together, and bam, they killed her just to demonstrate, yeah, George Miller will kill anyone. You know, you thought that the talking pig was safe. No, nobody's safe.
Wow.
But
I'm just a mixing of genres.
Well, it's the same director.
That's awesome.
I mean, George Miller is the guy who you know, that thing where he, the part in Babe, I'm going to throw my wife under the war rig here. The part in Babe that Pig in the City that made her cry is where the dog that's half paralyzed, the Jack Russell Terrier that's got these wheels, this wheelchair it's locked into, gets hit by a car, and the next thing you see, the screen goes blank, and the next thing you see is a big green field with like butterflies in it, and the dog is running through the field, jumping up and biting at the butterflies. Its legs can work, and it's just like, oh my God, George Miller killed a puppy, and now it can run happy in fields.
He killed a crippled puppy.
Thank you. He didn't just kill a puppy. He killed a crippled puppy.
You know, it's like, oh, you motherfucker! And then suddenly he goes back where, like, the other animals are waking him up going, Frank, are you okay? And he's like, what? Well, I'm all right. And I was like, at first she's crying tears because, oh my God, they killed the crippled puppy. And then she's crying tears of anger for being emotionally manipulated. Like, you fucker! You son of a bitch!
So is the next movie going to be Mad Max picking the city?
And what I'm going to say is that's how I felt watching this movie about the V8 Interceptor. Yes. They killed the V8 Interceptor, and I'm like, oh, and they bring it back. It's back! And then they killed it again. And I'm like, oh, George Miller, you fucker! How dare you? Anyways, moving back, what was the conceptually, like something you saw done in the film that really worked for you, or really got your attention, where they showed you something, because God knows they almost told us nothing, but where they showed you something and thought, okay, that's fucking awesome.
Ford,
you're first.
Oh, I think just for the awesomeness factor, it's got to be our favorite bard there.
The bard, okay.
The
bard.
The Doof Warrior.
Doof Warrior, man. I mean, just the whole concept. It was so ridiculous, it worked. That's the best way to describe it. So fucking ridiculous, it worked.
So now we got to start a petition. We got to get a campaign to get. We got to contact a musician in Australia and tell him that he needs to go on tour as a Doof Warrior.
Yes, indeed.
The truck's still around. They drove it out for the premiere in Sydney. There's actually footage of them, of stunt guys hanging off that vehicle as they drove it up to the Sydney Opera House, or wherever they showed it, driving through downtown Sydney. So the vehicle's still around. It's still available. Tours available. Colin, for you, was there something that really, when they first introduced you, went, oh, thank God this exists, or that's, particularly
when they started showing the agriculture in Morton Joe's, because now it is at least showing that there is something they're doing to eat. It's not, just kind of implied that they're not eating each other. There was actually food there, and it explaining that the upper class does actually have some kind of agriculture and/or technology.
Yeah,
it's more than just V8s.
Yeah, when he walks through the garden, the hydroponic garden in there, that was a really cool moment, because it meant that a Morton Joe is more than just yelling and pouring water on people. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the biggest concepts there that I liked, was that a Morton Joe was not Lord Humongous. Lord Humongous was just some dude being Mr. Warlord out there. And Morton Joe, yeah, he's Mr. Warlord, but he's so much more. He's been doing this more. He's actually been building. He's been gathering all these resources. He is more than just the Warlord. He is above.
Well, he is
in that world that's
I would say that he is. I'd say a warlord's not a terrible term for him. Lord Humongous is just a bandit. He's just a raider.
Yes,
he's a raider. He's a raider chieftain. He's not going to build the Citadel. He's not going to build industry and agriculture, and and Morton Joe's like, who's the warlord of the pit in Fallout 3?
I don't remember.
I forgot. Asher.
Okay.
Asher. He's like he struck me more as like that warlord. He's actually building something.
And he's got a religion.
Yes. Yes, he does. And I got questions about that in a second for everyone. But Chris, what was the part in it that really jumped out at you that you were really like, holy crap, that's awesome?
To be honest with you, one of my favorites was a flashback to Beyond Thunderdome. We had a set of 3 towns that were basically named after their function, and they were actually in semi-symbiotic relationship. It's how Morton Joe was able to drag on other resources as they kept going on there. They built a cute little ecosystem of towns in the post-apocalypse that was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah. I did like that this place didn't exist in isolation, that everybody had to specialize in what their contribution to the post-apocalyptic world was. And here's a question for you guys. The tanker truck was full of mother's milk, not water. And the thing that got me, I was really impressed by, was they never explained it in the film, but I realized, not the least of which because I just lost a cat to leukemia, that everything that was going on with the blood bags and the mother's milk was about the fact that the war boys are all have leukemia, that their bone marrow is crapping out, and they've got these lymphomas in their necks, these the cancers in their lymph system. The people leader, the head of Oil Town, he had that giant, I think it's called a lymphedema. It's a failure of the lymphatic system. Causes your legs to fill up with fluid, so it looks like elephantiasis.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, that leg was another sign of bone cancer, of lymph, failure of leukemia. And the two things that got me, when my cat was dying of FLV, they came and they said, you know, they did a blood test, said your cat's red cell count is 6%. It's going to die in hours. The only thing we could do is give it blood transfusions to extend its life. And if I hadn't had that happen to me 2 days before, I would not have gotten why the war boys are taking blood transfusions off of people, because they're not producing enough red blood cells to carry the nutrition, the oxygen to stay active. They're dying of anemia from the inside out. They're bleeding to death, essentially, from the inside out. So that's what the blood bags were all for. They never said that in the movie, ever. And I've heard people say that that particular way of getting red blood cells would not have worked, because a proper transfusion would have been, you get the centrifuge.
It's either the cells or the plasma, because I mentioned that because there was a whole article talking about the blood types, and you know how they have leukemia and the blood transfusions, and how just having blood go from one person to the other would not necessarily work.
Yeah.
And they went into detail about how his blood type really wouldn't work universally like they say. Like his was more universal for I can't remember if it's for platelets or plasma. Yeah. Like his was like universal for one of the two, not just putting whole blood in there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
because they did some screenshots, they showed, you know, of the tattoos on his back, and they were saying like what his blood type was, and they're like, well, the type of blood type he is, it would not work for that. It also, as a little side note, again, another little hat tip to the other movies was they put Road Warrior tattooed on his back.
Yeah. What was his background?
Yeah, it just said Road Warrior.
The other thing was about leukemia is, and I just would have picked this up because my wife was watching a medical drama show. Was it was that the mother's milk was also for the leukemia, because mother's milk has all these antibodies in it to protect the infant, because their immune system isn't all the way up, and the leukemia is not only killing your red count, it's killing your white count. So part of the deal for being a war boy is, yes, you've got terminal, leukemia, but we can keep you going via blood transfusions and the mother's milk. You're fed on mother's milk to keep your immune system up, so that the whole thing about milking the fat chicks wasn't just there to give me a boner. It actually had a real function in the story besides, just hitting my particular fetish buttons. So I was really pleased that they showed all that stuff.
Too much information, Scott.
What? This isn't live, is it?
There should have been no.
But the idea was that it wasn't. They showed us things, but they didn't tell us things.
Yeah.
And because of that, that was my favorite part of the movie, was that they showed us all this stuff, and if you pieced it together, you pieced it together. And if you didn't, the movie didn't care. The movie was just like, fuck you, there's a car chase.
Right. Fuck you, just think this is Japanese porn, we don't care.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So I really like the idea that, and also, both Immortan Joe and his creepy son, Rictus Erectus, are on oxygen systems. And that is something that's related to leukemia as well. They're both carrying oxygen on them. And again, absolutely related to leukemia. Do they tell us that? Nope. But if you have access to Wikipedia, go find out. You can look it up on your own.
Well, that's again, it's the good thing about, if you put the time to think and research and figure things out, it added a whole nother level to it. But if you didn't want to think, if you didn't want to have to go down that path, you could just enjoy all the action, which is fine too.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of action there. But speaking of his son, that big giant, that guy. I looked that guy up. That guy's like a fucking monster. He's
been in some Jackie Chan films, being a bad guy.
He's huge. He's immense. What was that gun he was wielding? Does anybody know?
It was made up.
Yeah, it was. It looked like it was assembled from different pieces of stuff. I mean, it didn't look like it was a weapon that I recognized. I even recognized the rifle, the sniper rifle they had, but that weapon looked like it was a concoction.
It looked like it was a manually operated weapon that they had put a drill on. There was some guy in Finland made a machine gun out of a cordless drill and a bunch of crap he cobbled together, and I think they found that idea and made it cool.
Yeah.
Oh, are you talking about the guy in the slingshot channel, Colin?
No. This is the old guy that went to jail for making a machine gun he shouldn't have in Finland. Out of a cordless drill and a bunch of crap, and it's a 22.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that amounted to jail time. I can imagine them fining him, but jail times—that's not fair.
Because the guy on the slingshot channel did something like that, where he basically took like some kind of drill concoction, and he took like revolver cap guns and put them all in this configuration that it just spun around, and basically you could go, okay, well, we could probably put some real revolvers on this to make this work. Maybe if it doesn't, we'd have to strengthen it, of course, because that's a lot of firepower. But
okay. Please note, Jared, that Colin is throwing up the URL for the cordless power drill machine gun. We'll need that in the show notes. We will need that in the show notes. Anyways, Mr. Wallace, did you answer the question? Was there something that jumped out in that film that was really something that just, you were just so pleased to see that it was a concept rather than a character or even a scene?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of little things that I liked. Like, of course, like I said, I liked the the ice, the music truck, the ice cream truck that he was driving around in. Like it's like you hear that coming, it's like ice cream. It's like the Dubois truck. I liked what you mentioned with the harpoon trucks. To try to like the whalers would shoot the harpoons into the whales and go have power backwards to slow them down. How the truck would drop. Like the hooks in the back to slow the trucks down. And I did like the siege truck that the guys with the spikes had. Like it was like this giant truck with like the crane with like the grab claw that was like pulling shit off the other truck.
Question to the audience. Jared asked what was the machine gun that Rictus was firing. What was the language that the guys in the spiky trucks were speaking? Because it was subtitled. And it sounded Slavic to me. Did you catch that?
Sounded vaguely Ukrainian, I think.
Yeah, it came off.
It wasn't exactly Russian, but it was very close. It sounded like Ukrainian or maybe White Russian. But I go with Ukrainian personally.
It was not obviously Australian. It wasn't Aborigine. It wasn't Indonesian. Who'd be there?
Slavic, definitely.
Yeah, it was weirdly Slavic, and when I heard that, I went, "What does this imply? What should I learn from the fact that there are Ukrainian or Russian raiders in Australia? Does this mean some guys got on a boat in Vladivostok to avoid the giant radiation cloud and beached in northern Darwin someplace? Is there
possibly?
Yeah, are there somewhere Chinese refugees that have ended up in Australia to avoid their nuclear Armageddon or whatever? But anyways,
or Russian refugees,
Yeah. But their vehicles, I said, I like their concept. The spikes over the cars to keep other people off from like jumping on your car. And I said that siege truck was cool. I said they had it armored and spiked and claws to pull your shit apart. So I thought that was pretty. Pretty cool idea there.
In close to that same scene, does anybody know what the silver spray paint is supposed to be? Is it merely huffing the propellant? Are they merely huffing the propellant on the paint, or is it meant to be something else?
I thought it was.
I think it's like a sign to people. It's a sign to people saying that they're going for that final shot, and they're in that final mode, that final zone of going at it to Valhalla, and it's just a big show. You know, spray the teeth, spray the face. It's kind of going back to a lot like what the Celts and Picts did with Woad, exactly.
Okay, I did get that, but I'm wondering if it was meant to be actual paint, do you think, or because again, huffing paint.
Yeah, I would say it's actual paint.
Well, because it's silver and chrome. Because remember, they're all fucking gearheads.
So
yes,
they're becoming
what
chrome.
You said, Jared.
Oh, got it.
So that's why it's silver, because it's all chromed, like the chrome on the vehicles, chrome on the engine. So that is that tie-in of why the color. But yeah, like you said, it could be just markings of the because they're because they're almost like vaguely berserker-esque, almost like getting themselves ramped up and suicidal, and that's that kind of gets them like that's their thing, like yes, I'm gonna get them. It helps get them elevated.
It's also a sign of purity too. Sorry.
The silver is.
Yeah, because you're in a world of metal that's nothing but rust and corrosion and all kinds of stuff on it. Pure silver, purity, clean metal, and for a gearhead, having clean metal, no rust, no problems. That's a sign of purity going at it.
That's a good analogy. I think that works very good.
Especially since Rictus's truck that was all silver. They went out of their way to make sure that thing was chromed and polished metal all the way down. That's a good call. So, Mr. Wallace, back to you. I don't want to derail anything else with my questions of the things in the film I didn't quite understand when I saw them. What else you got for us?
I was just trying to think,
Does anybody else have things that they're like, what the hell is going on with that? Yeah. Well,
no. If you have something you want to add, don't let us dictate everything. Just most things. But but yeah. But I just wanted to hit, like you said, Scott. We hit on, you wanted to bring up religion, Scott. The religious angle with Valhalla and things like that.
Yeah, I did. I like that they made the point that religion is more effective at getting people moving than pay or money or things like that. So the religious aspect and the sort of badly translated Valhalla with most of the Norse stuff thrown off, but the Valhalla thing was sort of interesting. I was going to say the whole idea that the war boys are dead men walking really reminded me of a Norman Spinrad novella called The Journal of the Plague Years, which is not an apocalypse novel, but a pre-apocalypse. And it was written back in the 80s when there was no real hope in sight for the AIDS epidemic. And one of the things that goes on in that story is the American Foreign Legion, where if you come down and are tested positive for mandatory testing in America, you test positive for AIDS, you have two choices. You either go and are sent to these quarantine zones, or you can join and just to die with no medical help. You just don't get any medical help at all. You're just on your own. Or you can join the American Foreign Legion, which is, or otherwise known as the Army of the Living Dead, which is all these guys who are HIV positive or have full-blown AIDS, who are kept stoked to the gills on military-grade amphetamines and all the best, medicines that they have to extend your life, all the best cocktails, and then they just use you overseas to, with no worry about how the casualty sheets are going to look, to enforce whatever U.S. policy or whatever is going on. And one of the characters in the story is a deserter from the Army of the Living Dead who gets back into America. And the War Boys definitely smelled like that right off the bat. These guys who are dead to start with, given a purpose, and then, bound by religious fervor to Morgan Joe.
Because what do they have to look forward to except for a short life? So you're, by him instilling that religion and way to control them, giving them something like, you'll have 21 virgins when you die. So he's promising them something. He built up this mythology, this weird.
What a jip! The Muslims down the road give 51 more virgins than that. That's
I know, but he was he was making this
inflation.
The religion was that kind of a combination of like the Valhalla Viking and Gearhead. It was like the combination of it's like it's like I don't want to call it.
It's like syncretic.
They were like gear punk Vikings, we'll call it. I don't know.
But it was that syncretic thing where they reached out to a bunch of different religions to create their religion. It had bits and pieces of other religions.
That's what most of them do, though.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, we're not going to go too far down the religious path, religion. So
we went there. We had a whole 2 shows on religion.
Yeah, we talk about religion too much, and
this is honestly, Morton Joe's religion would make a nice little addendum to that show because it was actually fairly well realized.
I think so. I'm all for joining the gear punk Viking religion. I'm all for it. Let's found it.
Once you've got some lymphoma and some your white cell counts crashing, you'll be more than happy to join up for some breast milk and some transfusions.
Absolutely. Well,
and a steering wheel for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, you know I love cars, man. I've owned several muscle cars in the past, and I don't have one now, which makes me very sad. But I drive a Kia Soul now. I have no I have no muscle cars. So I'm very sad.
But you have insurance. So there you wage slave.
I am a wage slave.
When are you gonna break away from Mr.
Johnson and do some wet work?
I was gonna say, what are you gonna go on a run?
Let's slot and
run. Slot and run. Yeah.
Slot and run.
Slot and run.
All right, the nerds are thick on the ground here.
Oh, absolutely. All right, I want to start winding us down a bit because we started late, but we're still a good hour and a half or more in.
Yeah. Let's give our guests the opportunity to say the thing that they most want to say if they haven't gotten a chance to say it.
Well, one last thing for me.
Okay.
And then we'll do that. So, the movie came in 2 formats, 2D and 3D. Colin, which version did you see it in?
2D.
You saw it in 2D. Ford?
2D.
Scott?
2D.
Chris?
2D indeed.
Okay, so we are all in the line that we saw it in 2D because do we all agree that 3D is ridiculous and unnecessary?
More than
it stands now, largely, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on the
needs
film.
to go a long way before it actually becomes something watchable.
What about you, Colin?
Well, Colin said it depends on the context of the film. In some places it fits. I can kind of see that. I am unfortunately of the ilk that 3D is completely unnecessary. And whenever somebody tells me a movie's in 3D, all I ever think about is Dr. Tongue's 3D House of Pancakes. Okay.
Yeah.
For those listeners who don't know, that is from an old SCTV sketch with John Candy. So
it never got better than Dr. Tongue's.
Remember that.
It never got better than Dr. Tongue's 3D House of Cats.
Basically, he has a stack of pancakes. He's like, "Would you like some pancakes?" And he just like shoves it in your face. And I feel with 3D movies, that's what they're doing. They're going out of their way to just shove shit in your face. To go, look how cool it is because it's in 3D in your face.
The only 3D film that was ever worth a damn, as far as I'm concerned, was Creature from the Black Lagoon, because it was underwater. There was so much of that film that was shot underwater. It was the perfect environment for 3D footage. Plus it's the 50s. It's black and white. Chris, why does 3D not work for you? Why did you choose 2-dimensional film?
Ultimately, it was because it was cheaper. However, that being said, it's just a matter of getting stuff together here. Like, there's only 2 places that I actually saw that 3D might have been better for the situation here. One was the very end when they're basically splattering everything on the place at the final stage, when they're having the rollover and everything's coming towards the screen. Mm-hmm. You can tell this was the "this is 3D" moment.
Yes.
and how the steering wheel just kind of like flew in your face, and when you saw it in 2D, you're like, that looks ridiculous. You know?
Yeah, indeed.
My big gripe is that the glasses they hand out make everything dark, and it sucks all the color out of the screen. I saw some.
I agree.
I saw some Pixar film, Brave, I think it was, and friends convinced me to go see it in 3D, and it washed all the color out of the film. The thought of going to see a Mad Max movie with all those brilliant oranges of the Australian desert and all just have that sucked out of the film, that sounded like a bad recipe to me.
Now, mind you, I have seen some 3D movies because I've had no choice, because that was your only option. Because I did see Drive Angry in 3D.
Oh my God, really?
Why is that in any D?
No, that movie is a total guilty pleasure. I thought that movie was fucking awesome. I loved it. I loved that movie.
There have been a lot of people who've said that. Have you ever seen there's a podcast called How Did This Get Made, which is about terrible movies, and they go on and on about Drive Angry. I haven't seen it yet.
All right, I'll spoil it, but there's a scene where he gets into a gun battle while he's having sex with this chick from a bar, and he's like still having sex with her while he's in a gun battle. It is the most ridiculous, awesome thing you've ever seen.
I've heard that at no point does Nicolas Cage stop fucking while shooting cultists.
Nope, he does not.
While shooting devil worshippers. Let's get this clear. Nick Cage is shooting devil worshippers while fucking a waitress.
Yep.
He sure needs money.
Yeah, perfect grindhouse.
It was awesome. And then of course, I always forget the actor's name who played the accountant.
Fincher.
William Fincher was fucking awesome in that role. Nobody else could have played that fucking role better. That character was fucking amazing. I'm sorry. I love that character. Anyway, that's not Mad Max. So, okay, so...
Not to say you wouldn't be happy to see William Fincher as Max.
Oh, I love William Fincher. He's fucking incredible. All right, so that was my question about 2D, 3D. And Scott posed a question. This is going to be the last thing we're going to talk about. Scott, the question you posed to our other guests was there anything else they wanted to just kind of...
Yeah, what is it you want to get off your chest, Ford?
Well, the biggest thing on this about Mad Max here that really blew my mind away, and is that it got made. I mean, it got made without what looks like a lot of monkeying in Hollywood, without the suit saying, "No, you can't do this," or "We got to put this thing in there," or "We need a trading monkey here," or "We need more explosions here," and that'll bring the kids in and stuff. No, I mean, this was made how Miller wanted it. This is made to standard how we would want to see it. This is not some kind of Hollywood drivel. I mean, I'm sure there was some kind of monkeying with the suits behind and negotiations and some kind of heated stuff going on in the back, and lewd and perverse acts, to make sure things happen. But it happened. I mean, I'm not a fan of Hollywood, I'll be honest with you. I mean, because the fact that the suits go in and monkey the shit up. They fucking monkey the shit up. We don't get quality entertainment because they go in with this drivel and this trite attitude when it comes to making movies and what they produce with movies. This was a movie which did not personify this, and personally, I don't know how the fuck Miller did it, but he did it, and I love it.
So Ford, what do you really think? No. Well, you know how it got made is because he did Happy Feet 1 and 2 and 2 Babe movies. So he had some kind of he had some kind of power because of that. That he did those movies and he was able to whether he had to call in some favors because of that. He did something he had to do to make that movie, and I think we all agree there. Colin.
I'm really glad that it got made, and I hope that this is going to break the whole hold on the genre that zombies have, because I am so sick to death of zombies and everything zombie-esque. And the only good thing about zombies is it got rid of the sparkly vampires. That's so hopefully this has a change in how people fund these projects, and maybe more of them will get funded, and maybe a couple of TV shows, something that will legitimize this genre again, like it was until the 80s.
I agree.
There you go, Chris.
Well, I guess the big one is I'm surprised it survived developmental hell. Considering how long it was stuck in there, Mel Gibson, this movie could have been a train wreck real easy, real fast. Quite the opposite. It was amazing. 2, it's an apocalypse. And it's an apocalypse that's colorful. It's not brown, more brown, yet more brown. It actually has color and feel and action. And, of course, Tarantino, take a look. This is how Death Proof should have been made.
You mean you should have had 45 minutes of talking in a bar?
Oh, yes.
Because that's what really made that movie pound.
Oh, yes.
45 minutes of talking.
Of insane babbling for minutes, so you want to watch them die, and then they die, and then another bunch shows up. Oh, my.
Yeah, let's
back away.
Yeah, let's not go on a Tarantino tear because I could join you on that one for a very long time as well.
How about you, Mr. Wallace?
Best rip-off artist.
Yes, very good at it. You're going to steal from the best.
Steal from everything.
Particularly if you steal from Asian cinema at the time, because no one's seen it, so you look like an auteur.
What did I think? Again, I agree with a lot of sentiments that people said about that. We're glad it got made, and again, I have a lot. I went in like wanting to not like it. Honestly, I really did because of all the commercials and it was overhyped, and I'm like, dude, I really wanted to not like it because I was like, listen, because as we all know, I'm very finicky, I'm very picky, and I don't fucking like anything. I'm worse than fucking Mikey, because at least Mikey.
I was gonna say, let's show it to Jared. Jared hates everything. Hey, he likes it. Hey, Jared.
Except driving angry.
I love driving angry, but exactly. So I wanted to, and did I think it was this amazing, best movie ever made, orgasmic fest that everybody on the fucking internet is making it out to be? No, I don't agree with that. I don't think it's the greatest thing fucking ever, which seems to be people's general opinions. But I thought it was a solid movie. It was a good movie. It had a lot of good action. It was an octane-fueled, white line nightmare fucking action fest. Absolutely. Thought it was a really good film. There's a lot of cool shit about it I loved. There's shit I hated it, but I think it was a good movie, and it will absolutely make it on my video shelf when it does.
Would you compare it to the way that the Dawn of the Dead remake is not the first Dawn of the Dead, but it stands on its own 2 feet?
Absolutely. I know a lot of people hate. We talked about this before. People hate the Dawn of the Dead movie. Was it 2005? Dawn of the Dead. Because it's not Dawn of the Dead. And you know what? You're right. It's not. It's Dawn of the Dead in title only, and the only other similarity it has is it's in a mall and there's zombies. But I liked the film, and I think they could have called it something else, and I think it would have got a lot better credit because it was trying to live off the previous name. And, yes, you're right. This could have had that same thing where it is... it's living off that name of Mad Max, that same kind of way, but it's really, you're right, Scott, it's a different movie. It's like, could they have not called it Mad Max? Probably. I bet you they could have. They could have called it, some bad 80s rip-off Road Warrior name movie like they've done before, like, Tanker Gas Chasing Explosion 2.
I think Tanker Gas Chasing Explosion may be the best title you've ever come on. Perhaps Battle Truck. Battle Truck 2.
Battle Truck 2, yeah. What Battle Truck should have been, but
that's going back.
Oh yeah, we've talked about Battle Truck.
Well, not every John Ratzenberger vehicle is going to be a hit. That's all I got to say about Battle Truck.
All right, so that's my again. I wanted a guy. I went in wanting to not like it, but I did enjoy it, and I will see it again. I will see it again. Like I have a friend who wants to see it, but he can never make the time because of X, Y, and Z. But I told him, if you want to go see it, let me know. I will go see it with you. You know, because I will go see it again. You know, and I do think that making it 3D was kind of pointless. I don't think it needed that gimmick to make it a good movie.
Not at all.
Like if they didn't add that 3D parts to it, just did it all 2D, it would have been perfectly fine. Because I think the movie is good enough on its own that it did not need that aspect of it. So that being said, and then lead off to you, Scott, and then the last bit off your chest, or whatever you thought about the movie.
The last thing I wanted to get off my chest was this hilarious thing that happened a couple of days or weeks before the movie came out, where George Miller could not have asked for better advertising to make this film go than to have a couple of guys from the men's rights advocates movement who sounded off that this film is a castrating monster, destroying action films, and rubbing dirty vaginas all over their man stuff. And that was essentially their complaint. That because Theron is in front of Hardy on the poster, that suddenly he's her bitch or something, and it's going to be filled with lies about girls having competencies and having opinions and things like that, and not just merely being vending machines for sex. And it was just really bizarre. I don't remember if it was. I don't think it was Theodore Beale. I can't remember which one of these particular jerkwads it was, but they went off on they posted, and the internet picked it up, and basically it was like throwing down a gauntlet saying, ladies, these men who think that you have no value outside of your use as a means for them not to feel gay when they have sex, these men think that this is a bad movie, and I think that got women's butts in seats. I mean, that meant that guys did not have to argue with their girlfriends about whether they were going to go see, Fury Road, or if they were going to go say Pitch Perfect. There were women who were like, no, those guys don't want me to see this film. Fuck them. I'm totally seeing this film. And, I think it helped. Even though, if I understand right, didn't Pitch Perfect actually beat Fury Road at the box office this weekend? Or the first weekend?
I'm afraid so.
It probably did.
Is it a matter of Pitch Perfect was PG-13? Because that's the big factor, and that's one of the big factors, and one of the reasons that these guys got through development hell intact is because we had an R-rated movie, not a PG-13 rated film, which is what the suits want, because they want 13-year-old kids in those seats. They don't. That's what they want, and they didn't get it. So that cut their numbers. But the whole weird idea that this film was some sort of feminist broadside against masculinity and was going to ruin action films forever. That's an interesting world they live in. I do not.
They remind me of Haggard. 5 minutes before he got caught snorting meth out of a male hooker's butt. I mean, they're screaming. It's just like the people that are screaming loudest about death to the gays or whatever. These people that are screaming about how it's like ruining manhood. They have no idea what they're talking about. They're just flipping out. It's just stupid.
Well, there's a rule now that if you're a dude and you're complaining about the gays, someone will find a penis in you at some point. I think that's just. Look at Denny Hassert. Oops.
Oh my.
The only thing that was said about the whole those people with the feminist movement and it's going to ruin films. I think one point one of them said that nobody barks orders at Mad Max. That's the only thing that I can agree with is that what?
And she didn't.
And she did. But you know what? I don't care if you're man, woman, child, dog, cat, whatever. Nobody barks orders at Max Rockatansky. Okay, that is the only. That is the only thing I agree with that they said. but they were totally out in fucking left field with their whole fucking theory. So that's.
Right. Well, they also were complaining that this whole movie is based on the premise that, men with large weapons and arguably small penises and brains destroyed the world and continue to destroy the world as long as they're in power. And
but it's true.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against that, but they will till the end of time.
The other side of the coin on this that came up that really annoyed me was that one of the people these guys are most annoyed with is this woman Anita Sarkeesian, who's done some videos on YouTube, and apparently she poo-pooed the movie because she didn't think that Charlize Theron's character was a proper feminist because she was driving a truck, shooting guys in the face, dodging bullets, and that's all man stuff. And a real feminist wouldn't have solved this problem using men's techniques. And I'm like, I was blown away by her. She actually, ma'am, you realize it's a post-apocalyptic world. Her options are limited. I don't think hitting Immortan Joe with a flyer campaign and maybe some some pamphlets is really going to cover this. You're going to have him. You're going to have to pull his face off and have him torn limb from limb by the mob. And by the way, that was awesome. When the mob tears Immortan Joe's corpse to ribbons, I was like, yeah, there you go. That's how the bad guy ends his days. Yes, perfect.
Chris made a good point that he said that the plot of the plot that
Max came up with was so dumb that it had to be made by adventurers.
There you go.
Yeah.
He's like, well, yeah, let's just go back. Let's go back in. They're not going to be there, so that's.
It did come off as a bit player character logic. There was a bit player character logic in there, but that's all right. We
loved it anyway.
It did also have one of my favorite bits where they have one of the women defect to Immortan Joe and then sabotage him from the inside.
Yes.
Because his presumption is they're going to surrender and come home to daddy, and know their place. And I thought that was a great way to fuck him over was that, oh, sure, capture some girls. It'll be great. It'll be good for you. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to call it. I'm calling it at 11:16. Just because we've gone on for 2 hours, so we got to spare the listeners a little bit, okay? But
we did have a lot of extra mouths to feed this time.
Oh no, we had a lot of good conversation. We had a lot of good input. We had a lot of good dialogue. Like I said, it was very, very good. A lot of good conversations. So thank you, Colin. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Ford, all for joining us for Podcast Ground Zero this week. It was nice to have you guys on. It was nice to see the face and get to know some of our listeners.
Unfortunately, by having them here, half of our listeners are now not listening. Our audience has dropped by about 50%. But
well, you know what, Scott? Most people do not catch it live because I
know.
I see the meter. Nobody, but we have like. I think now we're up to about 260 subscribers on the YouTube channel, so we do have a lot of people checking it out, and I think a lot of people now are hopefully just accessing the audio version, because I know we had some people asking for just the audio version because it's hard to sit here for an hour to 2 hours just looking at it, so it's just better just to hear us.
This is clearly the kind of thing you want to be doing, household chores, washing the dishes, cooking dinner around.
Exactly. Oh yeah, because we have such wholesome, good, clean dinner conversations. But,
plus face for
great for doing miniature painting.
Exactly.
There you go. He says, noting the miniature table right there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that being said, again, thank you, Ford. Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Chris, for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome. And we'll probably do something like this again. And I'll probably follow the same kind of format. I'll decide that we're going to have some people on. I'll put out the email. Hey, if anybody wants to join, first X amount of people get to be on. So we'll do that again. We'll have our show in 2 weeks. We'll talk.
Are we shooting for Twilight with Frank, or are we going to do something else?
We'll talk about it offline
right.
during the week. Probably, but we'll see, because I don't really have any strong inklings for anything.
The only other apocalyptic thing that's out there right now is the Monsters 2.
Yeah, I want to fucking.
I haven't seen that. You haven't seen that?
No, I haven't seen it yet. And also coming out tomorrow, I mentioned this will be the last thing I'm saying. Coming out tomorrow is the big what is it? Big production, who did the
Big Fish?
Big Finish.
Big Finish.
Big Finish, who does the audio series. They do a lot of Doctor Who, and they did the Survivor series, which I mentioned when it came out last year in June. They did the Survivor's audio stories, which were very good. The series 2 comes out tomorrow, which happens to be my birthday, so I get a nice birthday present tomorrow by able to get
post-apocalyptic birthday present.
I'll be able to get myself a post-apocalyptic birthday present by ordering Series 2 of Survivors, which is coming out. So that's it, folks. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. This is Jared, Scott, and we had Colin, Ford, and Chris saying thank you and good night. We will see you in the wastelands.